And we are live. Welcome to the studio, anybody that's in the stream this evening. Nice to see you all back. And we're going to be doing some more carving tonight. So a lot of tonight is just going to be getting these these areas here, getting rid of the waste material. So I'm going to need to clamp this down. Okay, for the moment I'll clamp on here, and then we will probably, so that we can go in here, and then we'll probably end up having to move things around. Shouldn't be using too much force, so I am clamped a little bit close to the edge of the piece, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So initially, at least, a fair amount of flat chisel work, but we will have to get into some of the smaller chisels to get into this sort of area here. And I'm going to start by sharpening this flat chisel. So just apply some polish to this leather. Then just draw the knife backwards. It's a heck of a lot easier when you're hand sharpening like this to draw the knife away from the edge. You also get a better edge than trying to go across, as you would do if you were using some sort of powered sharpening system. Not that these blades actually need a powered sharpening system. This is more polishing the edge to restore its sharp edge rather than actual sharpening. And then backwards a couple of times, because we create a burr, and that removes it. And this will be considerably sharper now than it was a moment ago. Let's see if we just move this camera a little bit. You might get a slightly better view of what it is that I'm trying to do, which is cut this area out here. So start with stop cuts, and then I'll shave the top surface of the wood away. Again, I'm going to try and maintain this finger if I can, but I think that's unlikely. But we shall see. Well, at least a bit of it's just broken off. Now it's just a matter of shaving the wood. and applying stop cuts as I keep going deeper. So I'll get down to the level of the wood that's here around it. This is kind of a first level. We're close to the final level, but not that close. So once we take this down, we then, and all these other areas, we then start to take this closer down to the final level. And we do it in a series of stages. That way it's a bit easier to try and maintain a straight and flat surface than, or it's easier for me anyway, shall we say. I find it easier to do that. I'm sure if somebody was a professional and has done this for a long time, they can be a lot quicker. If you've not seen what you're looking at before, it may be fairly obvious, especially from the title. It is carving. It's relief carving though, which differs from what most people think of carving, because most people think of carving as like figure carving, where you have a three-dimensional object at the end of it. This is, I kind of describe it as 2.5 dimensional carving. What we end up with is half of the object, which is then has a back plate behind it, so you can hang this on a wall, for example, and it will quite happily sit there, where obviously a 3D carving wouldn't. So yeah, you could also describe this as sort of taking the object that you were trying to carve, like an apple for example, cutting it in half and then sticking that half to a wooden plate, back plate. Although in this particular case we're not doing any sticking, we're actually carving it out of a solid piece of wood. We are using hand tools to do this. These particular tools are made in America. They're called flex tools, but there are quite a few others available. These just happen to be the ones that I got. They're extremely sharp tools, and they are best kept extremely sharp. They're a lot safer that way. What we're carving into here is a wood which in America gets called basswood, and sometimes in Europe as well, but it also gets called European lime. For any carvers, not just beginner carvers, this wood is a relatively easy wood. Well, it is an easy wood to carve. It holds the shape very well. It's quite soft and quite forgiving, and it's got a very fine sort of grain, and the hardness across the grain doesn't vary significantly like it does on some woods, which makes it easier certainly for beginners not to get caught in the grain, which can drag the chisel off to one side or other. But also it means when you're creating smooth surfaces, it's easier to create a smooth surface. You don't get an undulating one caused by the way the wood and the chisel interact. If you're wondering what I'm carving, it's a dragon. It's based on the image you can see in the bottom left there. It's not an exact copy, and it won't be an exact copy. For example, there's no rider going to be on this, which is the person that you can see. That image that's in the bottom left there was created by an artist called Michael Wheland, and he is an illustrator and creates book covers. In this case it's one of a series which he created for an author called McCaffrey, who wrote a series of books about a world called Pern, and they're sort of science fiction or folklore science fiction. The people of Pern have come from Earth a long time ago, but have basically forgotten that fact. They have a menace to overcome on their planet, and the dragons are basically, work with the humans to overcome that threat. Now, Anne McCaffrey had her own vision for what the dragons should look like, and Michael Wheland was, shall we say, possibly the only author which actually was able to understand that image that she had and actually draw it. And he was her favourite illustrator for her books. "3D bloke, good evening. You are always busy doing something else when I'm streaming, which is no different to when you're streaming, because I'm usually doing something else as well." Yeah, this particular dragon is a white dragon, which is unique to the Pern universe. He is the only white dragon, and he is called Ruth. And the dragon chooses their own name, so an interesting series of books. There's quite a few in the series of Pern, and her son Todd McCaffrey has now taken over writing stories in that universe, because unfortunately Anne McCaffrey is no longer with us. Okay, well, this is almost, if not down to the level of the wood, so I'll shortly move on to another area. Once I get a lot closer down to where the actual final level, I'll be doing less stop cuts, because I don't want to finish with a cut actually into the wood at the final level. I want it to be level, and if I did a stop cut at that point, you would sort of see this dark mark, especially when if we undercut these wings. It would then stand out somewhat. So a little bit of planning needed, but we're not there yet. I'm going to be lucky if that if any of this bit here survives, but we shall see. that crack was just the wood, the chisel going into the stop cut that I'd created underneath. I'm going to try and cut this out before I cut the back of this tail out here, because that will support it, where if I cut this out first and then try and cut that out, I'm at danger of pushing this piece off. This could prove to be challenging. I may end up with a tailless dragon. It's going to be quite an awkward area to do, because there isn't much space to get the chisels in. If there's anybody watching the stream that has any particular questions about carving, or pyrography, or scraper board, or punchcraft, which are 4 of the crafts which I have shown on stream, then feel free to ask a question. I've also done quite a few other things which not yet have been seen on stream, like airbrushing and rug making, etc. So I can also, if anybody's got questions about those as well, I can also answer, or try and answer those. I am an amateur. It's not a profession, and I'm not an expert in any of those things. In fact, I kind of like doing a variety of things, so I don't actually practice enough really to become as proficient as I should be in a lot of these things, but I do enjoy doing them, and it's nice to keep a variety of things. In case there's anybody watching who might be looking at sharp chisels and wondering when they're going to see any blood, well, apart from the fact I sincerely hope you never do, in over 3 years I've never cut myself using a chisel. I've cut myself on a chisel, which was in its packing, in its bag, when I've just caught my finger on it a couple of times, but I've never actually cut myself whilst using a chisel. Sorry if that's disappointing anybody. So I have quite a good safety record. I'm using a flat chisel here because whilst I could get a couple of the larger gouges, sorry, the smaller gouges in here, I don't have a lot of space to work with. Some of the tiny gouges I'll be using when I get a lot further down, but this is the biggest tool basically I can get into this space at the moment, which is allowing me to to pull fairly large chunks of wood out, relatively speaking, when you compare them to what will be what can be cut off with the smaller gouges. In case you're familiar with flat chisels and you're wondering, or you think you're rather surprised at me using it what appears to be upside down, because a lot of the time you see this as the chisels like that look like this, and I'm actually using it upside down compared to that. I am actually using it the right way up. This is called the cutting face, and that's the face that you hold against the wood that you're cutting. So as this cuts like this, the wood will then slide up and over the top of this. If I turn it over, the chisel has a tendency then to dig in, and I don't want it to do that. I want to go straight across. So this is actually the correct way to use the chisel. It's only just wide enough to get the chisel through that gap there, like that. Do actually have I am cutting, leaving a little bit of a gap around the material I want to leave. Which I'll shave off at a later stage, just helps protect the edges. There are lots of other styles and types of carving as well. As I mentioned earlier, this is relief carving. Not quite sure where the relief bit comes from, whether you are relieving the image of the wood around it, or relief as in standing out, which is probably the most likely one, but is a little bit of an odd name. But there's of course full three-dimensional carving. Kind of like statues, or basically anything. I mean, statues is just a way of me describing the difference. You can carve chairs, you can carve cars, you can anything that's in 3 dimensions basically. And it can be done with other tools as well. I'm using purely hand-driven tools here. You can get chisels that will, generally speaking, they have a longer handle, but they can then be driven using a mallet. Generally, if you've seen mallets, they for carving purposes, mallets tend to be sort of round, not the square type, and that's purely to do with the fact that if you have a round mallet, you always hit the chisel head square on. You basically can't do it any other way, which means it goes where you expect it to go. If you use the square head chisel, square head mallet, you can knock it off centre, and the chisel will wander all over the place. So carvers use a round head chisel. So round head mallet. You can also get power carving as well, and it's generally done in a couple of different. Well, there's sort of power carving using chisels. So you can either get an actual power machine, so like a mains power device, which kind of looks like a big Dremel, shall we say, and then chisels go in the end of it, and there's a reciprocating action which then drives the chisel. There are also handpieces for some of the rotary carving machines which will also drive a chisel in a reciprocating manner, and therefore again it just drives the chisel through the work. And indeed the manufacturer of these particular chisels, FlexCut, make an adapter for those machines so that these particular blades can actually be put directly into those powered chisels. So you can sort of have them doing two jobs. There is another type as well, which is a rotary carving, which is like a blade stuck in a Dremel, but generally speaking the tools are more specialised than that. They're designed for the particular purpose of carving and engraving. William, good evening, nice to see you. It's amazing what you pick up when you start doing it. I mean, I've never done any mallet carving, and I've used a mallet with a chisel, to cut slots, and I've hit it off centre a few times. I've knocked the chisel flying a couple of times, and when you realise just what the round chisel gives you, it's kind of, that's amazing. And one of these days I'm going to get a reciprocating handset so I can use my big quarter horsepower rotary and drive some of these chisels. Not that it's particularly needy on something like this, it's so easy to do. But welcome to the studio this evening, William. I am hoping you are well. Your headache from yesterday, I hope, hasn't recurred. I say yesterday, I believe you had one yesterday, or almost had one. Yeah, when first time I ever saw those round-headed mallets, I always wondered what they were for, because you kind of like, well, don't you need a square end to hit the chisel with? And it's a bit silly them having a round edge, you won't be able to hit it properly. But it's only when you start, carving or potentially needing to use one, do you realise that it's actually the other way around. They're the right one for the job, and the square ones are kind of, how the heck do you hit one straight with a square chisel, with a square hammer, mallet, hammer, chisel, that sort of thing that you hit something with. I keep confusing words. And once again today, free, I managed to catch Lost in Houses stream. The last 10 minutes because she finished early. I'm not having much luck listening to Lost. Every time I tune in, she's just about to finish. Problems with Twitch went on for quite a long time last night. Just trying to think. Were you still on when it dropped out? Yes, you were. I think, weren't you? Can't actually remember because I was watching quite a few streamers, and it kept Twitch kept kicking everybody out of the streams. Streamer was okay. They were still ingesting okay in most cases. Until they tried to restart the stream, and then it started complaining about the stream keys having been wrong. It's a weird evening. Of course, the real funny bit was every time you refreshed. Yeah, it quite often didn't pick up the stream, but it didn't have any problem playing the adverts. They came up every single time. I sort of don't mind adverts at the start and end of each stream, and you know, I know why they're there, I understand why they're there, and what have you. But when Twitch keeps telling you there's a problem and it won't give you the stream and you have to refresh, it does get annoying to have to watch the 30 seconds of ads each time. I wish they'd implement some sort of you just saw that 2 seconds ago, you know, I don't need to show it again. And you realise, mind you, I suppose when you're streaming you probably don't, but yeah, just about every time. Occasionally I didn't, and I'm not quite sure what that was. It yeah, just possibly the fact that so many people were restarting, it couldn't actually stream that many adverts. But yeah, I mean, who was I watching? I was watching a train simulator one. I think I was watching CJ as well, and I must have refreshed one of them. I mean, when it first went off, about 10 times, because you get a bit of the screen, or you get a bit of the web page, and then it'd time the video out, and of course all you can do then is restart. And, to be good for the partners as well, who have got you know, who have got a share of the ad revenue. Well, I hope we don't have any problems tonight. I'm not sure it was just EU ones either, by the way, last night, free. I mean, I suppose it could have been... No, I was about to say, I mean, you know, CJ I was watching, and a couple of other people that were American, and in fact Gluten-Free Gamer was experiencing it as well, and it wasn't specific to where the ingest was, and it wasn't particularly specific to where the watcher was either, because everybody on his stream was losing it. Extremely wary of knocking this bit of the tail off. Don't know why I should have maybe curled the tail in a different direction had I thought about it. Would have made doing this so much easier, because I'm about at the limit of how far I can use that blade. Oh, okay. Ectoplasm, thank you very much for joining the studio. That's most kind of you. It's pleased to see that you're enjoying the content. And this is a little bit blunt, so we'll sharpen this chisel. You know, I'm rather surprised that they haven't changed already to using Amazon's. It is Amazon, isn't it? That bought them. AWS, you know, the server farm stuff. And I guess if they've already got a heck of a lot of investment in infrastructure, then maybe not. Ectoplasm. Okay. There's only, well, I was about to say there's only a couple of people I've seen doing carving, and I'm one of them. Don't do it all the time though. It's at the moment it's 1 in 3 pieces is carved. I'm also doing pyrography and scraper board. Do you carve yourself, Ectoplasm, or do any other forms of art or crafts? I'm kind of on a mini mission to do 2 things. One is find cool art forms and crafts to watch, but that means encouraging people to stream them as well, so I can watch. Okay, what sort of carving, Ectoplasm? Relief carving, wood carving, stone carving? Or anything else? Interested? I am. And any particular reason why you don't or haven't thought of streaming? kind of being what am I being? A bit selfish there, you see, because I'd like to watch somebody do some carving as well, and since I'm the only one that I know of at the moment doing it, I can watch myself, but it's not quite the same. Carve, draw, bead, sew, paint and write. Yep. Oh, that's not tried bead. Well, I don't know what you meant by beadwork there. If you mean, do you mean those plastic fuse beads like perla? I've got some over there, way over there to try at some point, and I'm kind of interested in stone. Well, I love to watch stone carving, but I'm kind of interested in maybe trying something like soapstone, just to see what it's like. And about the only writing I do is of computer programs. All the other, no creative writing unless you count business cases at work, and they get quite creative at times. Now, I just wanted to check because some people, create jewellery with beads where they thread them onto a wire or something like that. So I just wanted to check we understood. And sewing, yeah, I do sewing as well. I generally do either cross stitch or needlepoint sewing. Wise, don't tend to do anything other than that. Although in the past I have made a shirt or a bit of clothing, and I do punch craft, which is don't really quite call it sewing, but it is sticking a needle through material. You create loops, a bit like carpet making, and that was something I've been doing on a stream at the weekend. Yeah, I'm like that. I just like trying new things out. If I can produce an image with it, and I will go for a realistic image with it, then I love to try it out. That's why I'm doing 3 different things on or 4 different things on stream, and I've got a rug down there. I've got some rug making materials down there, and I've got a cross stitch over there, and I just keep hopping from thing to thing. It's not particularly that I get bored doing things, it's just I can't decide what to do and I want to try everything. Thank you very much. That's called punchcraft. I don't have a needle in front of me, otherwise I'd show you one, but I gather there's some American equivalents, but the punchcraft that I do is made by the tool is made by a company in the UK called Webster's. They make a variation of it as well. That's of the punching tool, which is suitable for taking normal knitting wool, so you can make carpets with it. It's not, well, sorry, rugs with it rather than carpets. Yeah. That's exactly it. I started seeing some people do Pearl of the Beads on Twitch, and I was looking at that and thought, that looks interesting. Actually, it was Bubbles the Monkey I was watching, and I looked into it a little bit, and then on one of my streams, Bubbles told me about a kit from a European manufacturer, and that was it. Went out and bought it. It's sat in the corner ready, me to try something with, but too many things that I really sort of need to finish as well. I mean, I've got a half-built tank just sat down to one side of me, which I think is 1/12 scale. Yes, she is. It always amazes me how she knows just I know she's going from a pattern, but she always knows exactly where to put the beads. And I kind of shouldn't be surprised, because when I do cross stitching, it's the same thing. You just know where to put them. You just get used to where the stitches go. Because I generally don't do them. You're generally dotting around with the same colour a little bit, and you just know where they go. You get used to doing the counting and things, and I'm sure Bubbles is doing the same thing, but it still amazes me. She picks up a random coloured bead and it goes in exactly the right place. Any particular reason why you have not thought about streaming ectoplasm? I'm always a little bit wary about eBay stuff. I don't actually necessarily find eBay that cheap. It's kind of surprising, depending on who's selling the stuff, of course. But I do notice that quite a few firms you can find them on eBay, and you can find them on, let's say, Amazon, for example, and you can find their own website. And quite often eBay is the most expensive place. But there is always a huge variety of stuff there. That's true. Tell you who you might enjoy watching ectoplasm if you haven't come across him yet. AD Fall Guy, who he streams chainmail. He makes chainmail jewellery and things like dice bags and things like that out of aluminium ring. That's another fascinating one to watch, and another one that I look at and go, I'd quite like to try that. Oh, okay. There's quite a few that do both, and I've not. Well, I guess I've never really talked to them about the reactions. So fair enough. Yes, if it's, there's all sorts of complicated things about about streaming that I found out when I started trying to do it. But I don't know about workspace. You see this blue mat? That's the extent of my studio. Both studios, both the television studio and the art studio at the moment. Although I do have a table behind me stuffed full of things. Adiefall, ADIEFALLGUY, I believe. Oh, hey, that's interesting. You see this? You would be almost my ideal streamer than ectoplasm, because you'd be trying all these things out, like like your carving and the sewing and the chainmail and things, and I'd be watching her all the time, assuming we had a compatible time zone. Ah dear. If I'm gonna say, I don't know, 3D probably has a few words that he's thinking about as well, but it would, yeah, if I understand the thing about followers, and I'm sure there's the possibility that a lot of followers would unfollow if you started doing something like that, which is kind of annoying, but I think there's quite a lot of people who watch Twitch that have no idea that creative actually exists. And I mean, when I was doing that Punchcraft, for example, I started doing that in the train simulator section. There isn't a lot else, other places to do that apart from creative, and I got quite a lot of people that obviously saw somebody streaming in train simulator and came in because they were interested in it. And a lot of the comments was, "Hey, that's amazing stuff, if you like, and you do this on Twitch, and there's a creative set, is there? Didn't know about that." And a lot of people have then well, presumably gone and taken a look, and I think that, I certainly had a few people follow me from doing that one stream. But there again, I am just a creative streamer, so. Okay, have you seen the Danish guy? He streams Leathercraft. The only sort of similarity between what you just said, ectoplasm, and the Danish guy is Vikings and Denmark and leather and Vikings. So he might be another one if you've not come across him to see. He tends to stream during the day though, European time. Don't often see him on late on an evening, and he'll either be creative or he will quite often drop into some of the things like World of Warcraft. Oh, you're going to try and paint in Hearthstone? Yeah. I was reading the terms and conditions last night, Free. It's interesting that creative isn't mentioned at all. Music is. Yes, you're going to have fun though. But at least it will be gaming related content, won't it? So I bet ectoplasm, you're a master carver, aren't you? And you're currently laughing at me doing things like this. And if you are, that's quite alright, and yeah, you're quite welcome to give me tips. Yeah, although I think the last update was this year, so they've not they've not been fantastically proactive, shall we say, about inserting it. But I mean, there's the what's the other one? The streamer's guidelines as well. Right, I shall have to switch to a smaller gouge. Now, is this the V tool or the? That's a V. Yeah. This thing wants sharpening. There's me there forgetting that I've actually got a gouge in my hand and not a V-tool. Yeah. Don't know, I kind of expected them to update it, but they haven't, not yet. I just think it would be kind of fun in a way to go into something like Hearthstone or something like that, doing carving or some sort of woodcraft, and wait until somebody makes a comment and then go along the lines of, you mean you don't recognise what you've just been doing in game in real life? Yeah, this is what real crafting looks like. This is where I could do with a heuristic free, you know, a big one, but 1/2 inch wide. Not for painting with, but for bushing out the bits. Yeah, I'm getting a new pair of glasses next week, so hopefully I'll be able to see this a bit easy. Don't know if there's anybody on stream that's used those, I think they're called Optivisor things for craft or model work. If there is, I'd be interested in what you think about them. I keep looking at them to try and decide whether they'd be helpful for doing close-up work, because I still do things like electronic soldering and things like that, as well as you know, other things like this, trying to see fairly closely when I try and do detail. And never had an opportunity to try one of those things, and I just kind of don't really feel like spending a lot of money if they're going to turn out to be, you know, not very good, as some of these things can be. They look good on paper until you try them. Oh, it's okay. Did they get anywhere? Well, I don't think they did get anywhere free, but did anybody come on stream and tell it's not on stream, but into chat, and tell them to stop bothering? I think Danish has checked it out with the admin, hasn't he, as to whether they're particularly they have any objection to him streaming in some of the game channels like that. Oh, it's okay, Ectoplasm. I thought you'd just gone quiet for a little while. Can't actually remember what I was saying, so don't worry about it. Yeah. You just think, you know, it would save a lot of admin time if they had just done something like that, dropped into the channel and said it. So mind you, I suppose they'd have to keep doing it, wouldn't they? Because most people don't have a chat history. You could almost do with a Twitch approved banner, couldn't you, at the top? Yeah. Oh dear. In some ways, I can't think of a way that you could have been even more game related than that. I mean, you know, you're actually doing a craft that is available in game and crafting an in-game item for real, as opposed to people who just press keys on a keyboard and run around in this virtual world. I did find it funny, yeah. I mean, I can understand, yeah, true non-game related stuff. You know, somebody, I don't know, playing a Tom Cruise movie or something in the channel, but apart from that, it's kind of like, yeah, it's just move on. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the interesting thing about the T's and C's is it doesn't say if you're broadcasting Hearthstone, it doesn't say you have to do it in the Hearthstone category. You could do it in Minecraft, and that's not against the terms and conditions. It's amazing how many amateur lawyers there are on streams, isn't there? It's a bit hard actually to get a good camera view on this for you guys to see what I'm doing. It's not a particularly exciting bit, I'm afraid. It is just literally shaving out bits of wood. But let's see if I move that camera and give you a little bit better view of it, maybe. It really is the fiddly part though, because of the space constraint trying to get chisels in here. It means it's nibbling little tiny bits of wood out most of the time. Yeah, somewhere, there we go. I have a tiny hairy stick. Works better using the other end. That's true, yeah. Yeah, the partner tag does tend to suggest that Twitch approve. And I mean, if Dan's Gaming can broadcast him cleaning his toilet out, then and he was doing that in a gaming channel. Interestingly, I didn't see anybody mentioning when I saw that. I didn't see anybody mentioning anybody reporting him. Having said which, there is a simulation game which is Toilet Tycoon, I think it is. So there may have been some claim to gaming related content. Yeah. Oh dear. Who do I watch? Steve-O 070062 or something like that. I can't remember now. I've watched him for a long time because he well, he still does stream Euro Truck Simulator, and what attracted me to watching him was his stream title, as I said, Euro Truck Simulator with a real Class 1 driver, and I thought that's going to be interesting to watch, you know, to see how a professional drives a truck in Euro Truck Simulator, and of course he is, well rather you obviously don't necessarily know, but he's ex-military as well. In fact, that's where he got his Class 1, if I recall correctly. And you know, he does play a lot of games like Counter-Strike and stuff like this, and some of the other games, and it's kind of amazing when you know, you'll get the young kid that comes in and sort of says, you know, you can't do that, you know, they don't do that sort of thing, and then of course it's kind of like, you know, I've done this for real with you know, real high velocity projectiles coming at your head, and that's exactly what they do. I love watching people try and take on you know, real experts like that. It's real fun to see. Yeah. And of course you've got, you know, most of them are saying, you know, things like, you know, there's no way this game is real or anything like real. You know, of course with a game, you know, you get shot, you're dead, and you give up again and carry on. And of course, and there's just not, you know, that's not real life. And you know, the people sort of are doing things that they would never do in real life if there were real bullets, just because you know, of the risks involved. But in a game, because of course there's no real consequence other than you have to start again. Yeah, I only tend to be interested in games that kind of have a story behind them. I don't particularly fancy playing games that you're just shooting for the sake of shooting, which things, you know, don't actually know, quite actually remember Counter-Strike to be certain, but yeah, quite a lot of those games are just, especially when I guess the multiplayer ones are just person against person. There's no real story. I'm being exceedingly lucky with this area of this dragon, in that the grain of the wood is in a direction that is helping me. I'm tearing the wood a little bit, which is not ideal. I was just about to ask then, talking about the one, whether anybody had tried the lunar module simulator, which is out there, which is supposed to be an interesting game. But of course I don't think you would have done free, because I think it's a PC only game. Well, I think that's close enough. I'm not at final depth, and there's a lot of work to be done around here anyway, so I think we'll move on from that particular bit and do a little bit around the head here before I move back over to doing behind the wings on this side. That needs sharpening again. Yeah, it kind of struck me as looking like an interesting game. Although I gather it's kind of fairly limited in, you know, move from A to B and that's about it, but you've got all the lunar physics in there. And then just remove the bar. I've seen quite a few people playing that Elite Dangerous. It's not. I'm not sure whether it's something I'm interested in or not at the moment. If I did play, it'd probably be almost exclusively just in the trading area rather than anything else. Some part of this chisel doesn't quite feel right. Let me have a look through a magnifying glass. Which of course isn't plugged in, so I can't see too well. Let me just borrow the light a moment. Can't see anything up with it. Maybe I just haven't quite caught the edge properly when I've been sharpening it. Let me try that again. Yeah, I'm very selective these days. I use steam most of the time, and I'm extremely selective. I tend to watch other streamers play them more these days. And of course the type of games that I enjoy, like the adventure games, once you've watched a streamer play it, it's a bit hard to play again afterwards, because of course you know all the answers. Yeah. That's better. No, it's doing it again. It's ripping the wood slightly. There must be something about the angle. Something is not quite right. It's got a feeling of ripping the wood. It could be just the way the grain is at that, but in this particular area, but. Put some more polish on this. So it's a UK bank holiday coming up over the weekend. Anybody in the UK watching that's doing anything interesting over the bank holiday? I'm not sure I'm going to be doing anything interesting. I might do some streaming, we shall see. Especially depends, I guess, on what the weather's like. I have no idea what the forecast is. I kind of feel like a barber at the moment. I'm busy sharpening this and talking at the same time. Oops. Let me put a bit of compound on that. Day is it today? Thursday. Ooh. Which reminds me, there'll be no stream tomorrow night, guys. If you anybody who's watching, I'm afraid, I have another commitment for tomorrow, so I'm not going to be able to stream. But I will be back as normal on Saturday evening, and I may do a stream on Saturday afternoon. But again, that will be subject to things like weather and what else happens to needs to be done this weekend. Yeah, you do have the advantage of doing that, aren't you? Mind you, I was about to say, it's kind of nice sometimes to just go down to the beach no matter what the weather is. It can be really nice in a wind or even rain for that matter. Sitting on it might be a different matter, but I have enjoyed quite a few days, you know, at the coast where the weather is bad, but you know, being on a seafront with a nice wind blowing through your hair is kind of, that's if you got any, of course, and I'm rapidly losing mine, but can be a really nice thing to do. And of course you get some really nice images of waves and stuff like that when it's windy on the beach. That's if you're into landscapes of any kind, I guess. I used to, many years ago, fly model gliders, what we used to call slope soaring. You go basically up a hill and throw them off the side of it, and the wind blowing up the side of the hill would actually keep them flying. And I always used to enjoy being out in weather that was suitable for doing that, with a nice breeze blowing. Not quite the same as the beach, but still a nice environment. Can be extremely peaceful and tranquil, despite gliders whizzing about like demented flies. Yeah, of course, you do photography as well, don't you, Fraser? Where I often go on holiday, there's a concrete jetty or breakwater, and when the weather, or when the wind picks up, you get the waves really slapping against the end of that, and you get some really spectacular wave spouts just shooting up straight up about 20 feet and spreading out in some wonderful fans. Yeah, that would be another. I tell you what, I'd love to be able to do free, and that is airbrush something like that. Airbrushing water. It kind of terrifies the wrong word, but I've never been successful at water airbrushing. Just can't get it. And I'd love to be able to do something like that, something like a big spray like that in an airbrush with airbrushing. Kind of figure it'd be quite a spectacular picture, you know, just something like a harbour wall or a jetty, and then this sudden spray of water. You kind of think, that sort of effect, it's just made for airbrushes, but I cannot get it. Are you taking Monday off, or are you actually going to be on stream on Monday? No, not quite the same thing at all. Mind you, those fake droplets are really good use for a stencil. I haven't actually done any water droplets, but I've sort of half done similar-ish sort of thing. I'm trying to think what I was doing. I think it was something like I think I was doing something like a marble or something like that. Similar sort of idea. Twitch seems to be a bit quiet tonight. Normally while I'm streaming I can hear my iPad chortling to itself as people start streaming, but I've not heard anybody tonight. Somebody was it? I don't know who it was now. Somebody in chat, either your chat or mine free. I'm sure this week was asking about whether it would be acceptable to do tattoo on stream, and there was somebody actually on stream this evening just before I started that was doing tattoo. Starting on. Okay. Yeah, you have to use well, you can use water-based paint if you use a non-water soluble solvent. Easier with water, but yeah, I know the one you mean. You get the droplets on there, and then you dust one side with white and the other side with black, if I remember right, and then either leave it to dry or force dry it with a hairdryer from a long enough distance that you don't start blowing the water droplets about. I've seen videos of it. I've never tried it. Because you know what would happen, Free, because I think we both do the same thing. We'd suddenly find the water droplets were skating all over the surface because we were holding either holding the airbrush too close or the hairdryer. The archetypal water picture I'd love to do, of course, is the pipeline with the surface. Even just as far as just doing the pipeline itself without the surfer. I'm not sure whether anybody actually checked, of course, but I was about to say it wouldn't really be. There's nothing in there about Twitch terms and conditions, of course, are saying no self-harm. Doesn't say about harming somebody else. But of course there is the Twitch thing about clothing. And the guy that was, I only caught the end of it after they just finished the tattoo, but of course the client, I assume it was, wasn't wearing a shirt, so there's a potential, I guess, in there. But I mean, it wasn't the main aim of the stream, of course, so it's only like having that same effect in the game, isn't it, really, where there's a character that's not wearing a shirt, and of course all they do is say, that's not got to be the main aim. Yeah. I find it funny in a way, because you kind of, I don't know, you kind of know what should be acceptable, don't you, and what shouldn't. And yet they don't. It can be quite hard to encapsulate that in a set of rules. Now then, that's the grain is catching me there. It's trying to make me cut deeper than I want to. and I've already cut it a little bit too much, so I'm going to have to just nibble this bit out. Yeah. Yes, 10-minute warning, sir. 10-minute warning. Anybody who's on stream who doesn't kind of understand that, or the fact that 3D is currently busy disappearing, it's so he can start and move his computing equipment halfway across a room, because 3 is about to start streaming. 3 is, if you hadn't gathered, is an airbrush artist, and also actually a paintbrush artist as well. And the moment he's doing, or has been doing, a xenomorph in monochrome. That's white on black in this particular case, so it's a bit like a nighttime scene, and it's coming along really well, and Free does some quite amazing monochrome work, which is kind of my favourite airbrush technique as well, so I really enjoy watching it. So I highly recommend that you check him out. It'll be about 10 minutes yet before he actually goes live, so you don't need to disappear too soon. But I will probably end up watching him myself as well. So I will normally stop in roughly about 10 minutes time, just depending on how things are going and how the stream's going and how the carving's going. If we've reached like a critical point or an interesting point, then I do sometimes carry on for a bit. Now, just where I am here, the grain is starting to dip down, and if I'm not careful when I'm doing this, what the wood tries to encourage is for me to end up digging quite deep into it. But this is one advantage actually of using the chisel this way, which of course is with the cutting edge down, is that if I lower this down slightly as I'm cutting, it tends to push it upwards, so that it moves it up out of the wood, and I'm able to cut across the grain of the wood, and it doesn't dig in. I suspect that chortle I just heard was 3D bloke just starting up his stream, so he will be ready in about 5 minutes. We've made quite good progress on this today. It might not seem like that because we've only sort of cut out 2 areas, but they've all been kind of rather fiddly areas in their own right. So I'm certainly pleased with the progress that's being made. And I hope it hasn't been too boring for you guys. I know it's a lot nicer when the big gouges are out and and we're shifting a lot of wood, or when we come to actually do the piece carving itself, because then you actually see the shape take well, the dragon take shape. Just Jessup, good evening, welcome to the stream. I was just talking about 3D Block, who will be going live. Oh, I think he started his stream, but will be going live shortly. I think you're aware of 3D, aren't you, Just Jessup? Okay. Let's try a different. Never heard of him. Oh, blimey, 3 would be disappointed. 3D Block, as in FREEDE Bloke, BLOKE. 3D is an airbrush artist, and he also does do some painting with a well, what airbrush artists describe as a hairy stick, but normal paintbrush painting. He's at the moment doing one of the xenomorph from Aliens, and he's doing it as using white paint on a black canvas. So it's a bit like a night scene, but it's a monochrome artwork is technically what it is. And he's done some really quite interesting work as Free. He has got, for example, a Darth Vader helmet done in exactly the same technique. White paint on a black background. And of course, you know, whilst you might know Darth Vader's helmet is black, you can certainly see that in the picture. And even the white paint that is used looks black. That's how well done it is. So it's definitely worth checking out. What I'm probably going to do, because I'm nearly finished this section, I'm just going to finish this area that I'm doing here for now anyway. Do it to a level where I'm happy to stop it. And then what I'll probably be doing is stopping my stream for this evening. And taking a rest, because it is quite hard work doing this, even though it's easy-ish wood to carve. I'm kind of doing it at a little bit of an odd angle just to make it a bit easier for you guys to see, and that just takes a little bit more effort. And it is 10 o'clock at night here in the UK now, so we're also getting a little on in time. So if anybody is interested in watching 3D, then either you can go directly to his channel, or I will probably host him when I stop streaming shortly. Plus I've got a couple of donuts that are sat downstairs with my name on them. And you don't leave donuts hanging around. They deserve to be eaten, the donuts. Right, yeah, I think that will do for now. Make sure we've got nice clean edges, which we have. I'm not quite sure whether quite how to take the meaning of that. No, you don't stand a chance. I'm having them. There's no way anybody's getting those donuts at all. Although I must admit, I do, he says, making you want one, I do prefer jam donuts rather than big donuts with chocolate and sprinkles and things like that on them, which is what I've got downstairs. But yeah, no. If I can, I will try and link him, but I am going to host him anyway. But what would it be? tch.tv/3d blog. So that should be the guy I mentioned, just Jessup, and anybody else who's interested, of course, in the stream. Yeah, I think I've come to the end of the stream for tonight. We've cut a nice area out of here. We've done around the back side of the dragon's wing here. A little bit of work to do around the tail, and then just a tiny bit here around the head again, and then the back of this wing. What that will do is take us down to the level we've got the back plate at the moment. That's sitting about 2 or 3 millimeters higher than I actually want it, and that's literally so that, you know, whilst I'm doing this, if I cut too deeply by accident, then I don't have a problem with that, because I've got to make it go down further still. But then we start, what we start doing then is smoothing this background off, because I think I'm probably going to do it on a smooth background rather than this quite nice roughened background, although I'll maybe have a think about it, because textured backgrounds like this can look quite nice. And then once we've got that background at the right place, we then start carving the dragon itself and determining the dragon's shapes. Probably I don't expect to get to doing that until probably Monday of next week at the earliest. It is, unfortunately, the background does take a fair while to do, and to do it to a reasonable standard. Krispy Kreme. I've never actually tried any of those, but I'm in the UK, you see, so we don't tend to have too many. We don't particularly have specialist shops that I'm aware of. Might be the odd one around, but they do tend to. We just sort of have the mass manufacturers. The ow was because I jabbed myself with the chisel. I'm extremely lucky that I did not actually harm myself at all. Not even a scratch. I can feel it, but not even a scratch. That was real lucky, because these things are really sharp. So anybody who's watched the stream now knows that what's coming now is the advert. So if you have been watching this evening, you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider pushing the follow button. If nothing else, it will, in theory, mean Twitch will tell you when I go live, so you can watch the next instalment of this particular piece of dragonry and carving. I don't know what the term is for carving, but anyway. But also, if you don't trust Twitch to do that, as sometimes it twitches, you are also free to follow me on Twitter at ZaragonArt, and if you don't remember that, the details are below the stream window. I do tweet when I go live, and that's about the only tweet I ever send out, so you're not going to get inundated if you would like to follow me in that way. It'll just help you know when I go live. But apart from that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for joining me today. It has been most interesting. and okay, junction 27 on the M1. Yeah, that's the M1, isn't it? Just down there. I think I've been there once, but I don't recall seeing the donut shop. Shall have to maybe one day go again. And Calcen, thank you very much for saying good evening, welcome, and unfortunately goodbye to the studio this evening. I hope I'll see everybody again. Not tomorrow, I'm afraid. There's no stream tomorrow. I do have another personal commitment, but the next stream will be on Saturday at 8 PM UK time, 1900 GMT, or 2 hours ago in your own time zone, whatever time it is now. 2 hours backwards from that will be the time I will go live on Saturday, and if time allows it I may well go live in the afternoon, which will be sort of 4 or 5 hours earlier than that, but that will just be an ad hoc stream, depending on what weather's like and things like that. In the meantime, everybody, as I'm in the UK, I will wish everybody a good evening, and I will hope to see you again. Okay, just Jessup, I shall... It's not too far away. I'm in Yorkshire, so I can't remember, to be honest. But I'll, as I'm in the UK, I'll wish everybody a good evening and a good night, and thank you all for watching, and hope to see you again.